Thanks, everybody. I'm not going to talk about science or the consortium. I get to talk about the TREX, which was a lot of fun. I'm going to hit on the high points of what the TREX program looks like at the national level. A lot of folks on the East Coast don't even know what a TREX is. And I want you to leave here today knowing what a TREX is and how you can use a TREX to maybe build your capacity, or at least to build your task book for your wildfire training, your prescribed fire training. The second part is I'm going to dive into the Southern Blue Ridge TREX. This TREX was held this past fall. I'll talk about what we were able to do together in the Southern Blue Ridge. So the TREX program stands for Training Exchange. That's where the TREX comes from. And it was created in 2008, and really it was to ease these bottlenecks that we were seeing across the country in prescribed fire workforce. So these training events have been adapted really to meet a lot of different needs. So the Nature Conservancy took on and leads this challenge, but it's funded through the U.S. Forest Service and the Department of Interior as well. So it provides this hands-on training for everybody that shows up. It eases these bottlenecks, and then it promotes this great interagency coordination of resources and burn windows in each of these areas across the country. These are 2-week trainings, so they're run like a 14-day incident. You show up and you commit to 14 days of training. We start typically these things with at least a day of introductions to local ecosystems, to land management practices in that area, crew members, getting to know your crew members, crew building exercises, equipment. Our equipment comes from the folks that are participating in the TREX. So when you sign up for a TREX, you say, hey, I'm going to bring an engine. And that's what I have to contribute for the week. Or I've got a fuel trailer and drip torches, and you bring your equipment for the greater good of the whole event. The crews implement these prescribed burns over 10 to 5 days within that 14-day time period. So basically, we're trying to burn as much as we can in that 14 days as possible, given our weather conditions. And then a lot of presentations, a lot of field tours from those geographic areas where these TREX events are happening. They range in size from 10 to 100 participants. They've treated as few as 37 acres, and as you can see, up to as many as 6,200 acres. So we've got these skill levels ranging from first-time firefighters, people who have just gotten their FFT2 and really no experience, to folks who are maybe looking for burn boss, task book work, and qualifications, and everything in between. So this is just a great look at this cooperative agreement with the Fire Learning Network, which also plays an integral role in this. FLN is, we have a great Southern Blue Ridge and a Central Appalachian FLNs in this part of the world. And this cooperative agreement, you can see here, like I said already, is Forest Service and DOI, but they're combining these different aspects of fire, this fire adapted community piece along with the social and operational piece, as well as restoring and sustaining these resilient ecosystems. And then all within that is the science, learning, and cultural knowledge that these TREXs bring locally. So this is all about really living with fire and going even further than just that wildland firefighter training. I love this slide. It shows really the TREX, the evolution of TREX from 2008 to 2018. As you can see, numbers have gone consistently up over the years. I like pie charts. Those pie charts show great things. Those are our partners. So you can see in 2008 we had very few partners, and TNC was the largest participator. If you look at last year in 2018, there are a lot of colors on that graph, which means a lot of participants and our agency participation, and it's pretty equal, which is a pretty neat thing. The line graph underneath that is the number of events that have occurred each year. So we were up to 16 events, which was the most that we had ever had here over this 10-year duration. And then I like the bottom map. That bottom map actually, are those little maps, I hope you can see them, show actually the location of each of those TREXs for each year. And you can see that it started in the middle part of the country, moved west a little bit and back to the middle, but you can see now we're starting to pick up a little bit here in the east. And we've only ever had 3 here in the east, one in Virginia, well, 4 now, one in North Carolina, one in South Carolina that we hosted, the Southern Blue Ridge, and then this past year, the Women in TREX event was in Florida. So we're looking through these TREXs, we're looking to burn through barriers. So we have a very diverse body of participants. That diversity is ecological, it's cultural, regulatory, tactical. Everybody and anybody from all agencies and not even agencies are there, and we're trying to put together a burn crew in a very short order. There's a real can-do attitude. One example of success is the 2015 NorCal TREX, which issued permits during the California statewide burn bans. So they've been able to build this trust within California of the program. And then being able to overcome these barriers of implementing prescribed fire. Like I already said, we're utilizing the incident command system in this 14-day event. It's a Type 3 incident command team with all of those positions filled from the incident commander to plans, logistics, everything. Daily planning cycle, daily documents, just as you would turn in and be involved in on an incident. We're building local capacity for safer fire. So we're providing that basic training, but we're also, like I've already said, integrating lots of different agencies, and we're not just integrating them in a situation like a meeting or a training, we're actually carrying those torches together. So we're making decisions on the ground together, we're carrying torches together. It leads to this really great sense of bonding and teamwork in a very short period of time. And then we're increasing in areas available fire management capacity. So when we bring in a TREX event to a place, we're able to burn a lot more acreage than that area could have without that TREX event. We're helping communities become more fire adapted with burning in and around those fire adapted communities. We're making them safer. We're educating the public. We did a lot of educating in the Southern Blue Ridge TREX. And then we're reducing the damaging effects of wildfires. And so this just takes another look at that, a bigger look at that pie chart that you saw in that big graph that showed the progression over the years. And they're the partners. In 2018, this is what the partners looked like. You can see there, it's wide and a large variety. There's also a really large international component to the TREX events. The Southern Blue Ridge TREX had 3 folks from one from Spain, or 2 from Spain and 1 from Costa Rica. So a lot of involvement from other countries in our TREXs, and that's increasing every year. Then we're also integrating this cultural and ecological perspective. The first TREX I ever went to was the Klamath TREX in Northern California, and it's on the Karuk tribe. And their goal in burning there is unique to their tribe because they're burning for cultural resource. They're burning for basket materials. They're also burning to train their own burn crew within the reservation. So their story is much different than the Southern Blue Ridge story, and to me that's the really cool thing about TREX, is that it can meet the needs culturally, ecologically, and social context wherever that is held. So California looks different than South Carolina, and the women's TREX looks way different than a TREX that isn't a women's only TREX. So to me, that's the beauty of the model. You can really, really bear down and hone in on your local area. And then that interagency cooperation, I've already kind of gone over most of this. A lot of MOUs and cooperative agreements go into these things. The great thing about these TREXs is it's $300. So that $300 covers all your food and lodging for 2 weeks. It's a great deal. So it makes it easy for organizations to send folks to get that training. But it also means we've got to do a lot of behind the scenes work to get our budgets in place and figure out where those budgets are coming from in order to cover what our entrance fees don't cover. A lot of positive media outreach, delivering key messages to videographers, to news crews, bringing out the media to these events to teach them about what we're doing so that when we do get wildfire incidents, they are familiar with the process of prescribed fire and fire and ecosystems. And teaching them how we use it as a management tool and letting them carry forward that message in future stories. So let me get down to the Southern Blue Ridge TREX. Tom Dooley with South Carolina TNC, Tom's going to talk after me, and Kristen Austin came to me, and usually I'm all in for crazy ideas. And I said yes when they said, hey, we want to have a TREX in the Southern Blue Ridge. So we started thinking about that. And if you take a look at this map, there's a black dotted line there along the South Carolina-North Carolina state line. That line, it's a little hard to see. It's kind of behind that purple and blue. That line shows the Blue Ridge Escarpment Fire Learning Network landscape. The Southern Blue Ridge Fire Learning Network has multiple landscapes within the Southern Blue Ridge, and I co-lead this landscape with Kristen Austin of TNC. And we decided we really wanted to increase capacity in our landscape. How are we going to do that? So there's a dot kind of right in the middle almost of that purple, and we decided, all right, if we had a map to start with so we could identify places and agencies and partners, that would really be great. And so that purple line is a 30-minute drive from our incident command post, which was the Westland Conference Center. The blue line was a 1-hour drive from the Wesleyan camp, and the red line was an 1.5-hour drive. So those are places we felt we could drive for the day and make it back to camp for the night and have successful burns. So we were able to kind of drill down and come up with about 40 burn units within this landscape, and we were able to keep the majority of them within that Blue Ridge Escarpment landscape. This is a pretty important, the place we met was a pretty important place. It's adjacent to Table Rock State Park. And so 1 year prior to us this is what it looked like when we were there. 1 year prior, it looked like this. It was the site of the Pinnacle Mountain, the 2016 Pinnacle Mountain Fire, which was the largest wildfire in the mountains of South Carolina, about 10,500 acres. Local communities were evacuated twice during the month that fire was fought. So we were really, really sensitive to that community. We wanted that community to understand that we were coming back 2 years later with our yellows and greens, and we weren't there to fight it. We were there to, as Johnny said earlier, we were there to light it. And we wanted the local community to understand that and why. So we had a really, really strong push for, with the local communities, with our local fire departments, etc. So this is what it looks like when we bared down and we narrowed down all 40 of those potential burn units into where we were burning. So we were inside that red dotted line, as you see, and all those flames represent burn units that we had burn plans ready to go for and plans to burn. This is just an example of all of those lands within that area. Within that circular area, we have, let me back up a second, I skipped a step. Within that circular area, we had U.S. Forest Service land, the Sumter. The Sumter burns on an average about 7,000 acres per year. We had Greenville Watershed. Greenville Watershed had never had a fire on their watershed, and they were at the table because they were ready to start burning. We had state parks. We had into North Carolina state parks, North Carolina Forest Service land, South Carolina Forestry Commission land, South Carolina DNR. In that, we had also a couple of NGOs and also a private camp that was interested in reducing fuels on their on their lands. So a lot of partners at the table, a lot of different objectives, and a wide variety of skill levels in terms of how they put fire on the ground and reasons for putting fire on the ground. These were our participants. We had, gosh, I think this is 24 different agencies that showed up to the table. We had 55 people, 55 participants, and about 12 to 14 folks on the planning team. So we had a large contingent there, and a broad, as that pie chart shows in the earlier slides, a broad variety of folks and skill levels there. This is kind of what our organization looked like. Tom Dooley was our IC, and then from there it trickled out. The largest piece of this thing that you've got to keep organized is all the folks that are bringing their task books. So all of our participants come and they've got those task books open, and we have to make sure on our end, on the planning end, that we've got trainers for all of those positions. We can't bring in 15 engine boss trainees and only have one trainer. there. So it was a pretty delicate balance, but we were successful in getting a lot of training opportunities. This is an example of of what we put up in the local fire departments, grocery stores, convenience stores, parks. We put this out at least a month before the event, and we really wanted, like I said already, the local community to understand why we're there, what we're doing, and we wanted them to feel comfortable with stopping us and asking us questions about what we were doing as well. Along with those fires, the day of the burns, we had set up these trap lines with the South Carolina Forestry Commission. And these were just boards that were put in strategic locations that we knew folks that if they were passing by our burn units would see. Lots of information, handouts that they could take with them, a media advisory, our media releases, all of those types of things. So this is kind of what it looks like because we got a lot of rain. We had maybe 2 days without rain. We had 2 burns on South Carolina DNR land. As it shook out, those burns were pretty dirty burns. It was really wet, but we got a lot of great training in there. We were the first TREX in the country that had plans to use aerial ignition. So there had never been another TREX with aerial ignitions. Luckily, the Sumter National Forest stocks the Chattooga River, which is a wild and scenic river. They stock trout by helicopter. In that 2 weeks that we were there, the helicopter was there for our use and is also there for trout stocking. So our HECM trainees, those helicopter crew member trainees, were able to still do a lot of really great training with the helicopter due to that fish stocking. We did things like, as you can see there, sim table simulations. We did yoga for the fire line. We did PT. We did chainsaw courses. And everyone who came brought something different to the table and would just throw out there every day, tomorrow I can do scenario with first aid. And so we just filled it with as much training as we could, even though we didn't see a whole lot of flame. So this is kind of a recap, what we did by the numbers. We put this together and put it out afterwards. 12 partner agencies that helped plan the event, 50 plus participants. 20 professionals were involved as trainers, presenters, and organizers. 100% of the participants surveyed said they would take what they learned there back to their home units and put it to work. We had 3 controlled burns, and 5.5 miles, though, of fire breaks were dug by hand. So there was a lot of digging. We dug in the rain, or they dug in the rain. I don't think I dug much. But anyway, and so that contributed to us being able to do some really good burning this spring. So we didn't get a lot of fire on the ground in the fall, but we were able to get a lot more fire on the ground in the spring due to that work that happened during the fall. Another reason for us planning this thing in the fall that was related to capacity is that we always say, oh yeah, we're going to burn this fall. And we get a real short, tight window. But we don't usually have, at least on the Forest Service side, the staff in place. Our seasonals aren't here yet, aren't there yet to help us. So what happens is we get all gung-ho, but we just don't have the capacity, people-wise, to get the burning done. So this TREX in the fall gives us potentially that ability to burn more in the fall than we've ever been able to before. Or if you're digging a lot of line, it gives us more opportunity in the spring. We did 154 training assignments within the Type 3 incident system. So a lot of training still went on. 41 social media posts, over 5,000 responses, reactions, and comments. 12 media stories. We really invited the media out. We also invited our lawmakers out, folks out of our representative offices for those counties. 5 information boards that I already spoke about, and then about 150 flyers were distributed all over the area. And that's it. This is how to reach me. There are a handful. Who was at the track, the Southern Blue Ridge TREX? Yeah, so we've got, gosh, a big crowd over here. If you've got questions, they're great. They're all happy to answer those questions. We haven't officially made this official, but we have reserved, Tom Dooley and I have reserved the camp for the fall of 2020 for another Southern Blue Ridge TREX. So it'll be the last week of October, the first week of November. It was a good time frame last time, before the holidays, but still within hopefully a good burn window. If you need to reach me, if you've got questions, if you want to be involved, learn more about it, this is just my contact information. And then if you're interested in learning more about the program at the national level, Jeremy Bailey is the national director for the TREX program, and this is his information. So that's it. Do you have time for questions? Okay.